So I'm going to share with you some of the common problems that we typically see, but more importantly, I'm going to try to put a number on what those problems potentially could cost you. Sometimes the problems that we see from a weed control standpoint, we kind of blow them off. But if you put the numbers to them, it might make you think a little bit more about what you're doing and when you're getting ready to do something that's probably not a good thing. So for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to just emphasize a few things, and these are the topics that I'm going to address and the problems that we see related around those, and again, the economics that it could potentially be affecting you that you really don't think about because it's not coming out of your pocket right there. It's going to come out of your pocket later in the season, at the end of the year. So first, this is probably the number one thing you hear from us all the time, is that we cannot plant peanuts into a field where pigweed are already up. If we do, we're going to spend a ton of money trying to get those under control, and we may not even do that at that point. So if you pull up to the field and you got pigweed that looks like this, you got to do something else, whether it's herbicides or tillage or both. You've got to do something about it. If you don't, you're going to spend a lot of money the rest of the year on herbicides that are not going to control those weeds because they're too big. And that's a whole other issue, but I'm going to address that as well. Here's another example. And I'm going to put some economics to this. A grower called me and said, hey, if you look at what happened here, this grower, for whatever reason, let the pigweed get 4 to 5 foot tall before he planted. And then he came in and he mowed, disked, and rototilled 2 times and thought he did a great job, put a pre-emergence herbicide out, and then a week later called me and said, well, my pre-emergence herbicide isn't working. So we went down and looked at the field, and you've got all these chopped up plants. Well, pre-emergence herbicide is not going to control that at all. Pre-emergence herbicides control plants that are coming from germinating seeds, not plants that are coming from chopped up plants. Right? So if you look at the economics on this one, and I don't know if Marshall's here, so I've got these from Amanda, but if you look at, he mowed, disked, and rototilled twice. That was $21 an acre extra that grower spent to control those pigweed. Right? Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but if that was 100 acres, that's $2,100. I don't know about you, Bob and Mark. I would love to have $2,100 at the end of the year put back in my pocket. Right? But that was $21 that was spent that didn't need to be. Here's the other issue we tackle all the time, and it's easy for me to stand up here and say, spray when the weeds are small, your herbicides are going to work, and that's 100% true. But for various reasons, you get delayed or whatever. This is just a perfect example. I sprayed large palmer amaranth. These were 5 to 23 inches tall, and I sprayed them with Gramacho. And then in 6 hours, you're thinking, oh, wow, that's pretty good. But then when you go at 19 days, you'll notice that I didn't really do anything. Everything grew back. Right? So again, delaying weed control is a huge mistake. A huge mistake. Here's another example. I sprayed Cobra. Everybody thinks Cobra is a good pigweed herbicide, and it is. When you spray it when the pigweeds are 2 to 3 inches tall. It's not when you spray them when they're 17 inches tall. Okay? Again, you can look and see I sprayed a good rate of Cobra and a crop oil, and then that one day I'm thinking, maybe I'm going to do okay, but then by 16 days later, I didn't do anything. I just wasted $20. Right? How do you solve that problem? You got to spray earlier. But if you look at some of the economic, what does a delay in control mean to your pocket? Right, and looking for some data, I came across this. This is the estimated yield loss from delayed weed removal in peanuts. And basically, when these types of studies are done, they're done like this. You plant the peanuts, you let the weeds grow, and you remove them at different times in the life cycle of the peanut. Right, so quite simply, if we wait till 3 weeks, we're going to lose 5% of our yield. If we wait till 5 weeks, we're going to lose 20. And if we wait till 7, we're going to lose 35% of our yield. So again, what does that mean? If you do the economics, and I'm just going to take 5%, and I'm using 0.205 cents a pound based on the last numbers I've seen from one of Tyrant's recent market reports. But if I lose 5% of my yield because I delayed a herbicide application on a 5,000 pound crop, that's 250 pounds. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see that when you spray it. It's not going to be there when you dig your peanuts. So that's 250 pounds at almost 21 cents. That's a $51 an acre mistake. So again, if I did that on 100 acres, that's $5,100. I would love, again, me personally, I would love to get another $5,100 a year at the end of the year. Right? Again, you're not seeing that when you do it, but it's hurting you somewhere in your pocket later on. Okay. Now, what about mixing, loading, and sprayer cleanout? Right? Everybody's in a rush, everybody's in a hurry, but to me the number one mistake, and it's illegal to do, we shouldn't be doing it anyway, is when you put a pesticide in an unlabeled container. And then you leave that container aside, and then in the heat of the battle, you look down and think it's a surfactant, and then it winded up being Roundup or something else, and then you spray that on your peanut crop. And then that's not good, right? So depending on the product that it is, we can get varying degrees of yield loss because we sprayed a product that we weren't supposed to spray on the crop. This happens every year. This is from last year. I'll get at least 3 pictures of these. I've got more. It probably happens 10 times a year that I know about. It probably is happening more than this based on the fact that we have a ton of glyphosate around the farm now. This is glyphosate injury on peanuts. It occurs every year. And usually if I go out to the field, the conversation starts like this. It's like, I think it's glyphosate. Oh, there's no way, it can never happen. It'll never happen, blah, blah, blah. And I usually say, well, let's make a bet. Right? If it's glyphosate, you pay for it. If it's not, I'll pay for it. Right? And most times nobody wants to take me up on it. But I'm pretty confident, and I'm going to change I'm confident with this, but then in a few minutes I'm going to tell you another funny story. But I'm pretty confident. As soon as I put my foot in the field and I see the symptomology that you got glyphosate on your peanuts. Now, where it came from, I wasn't there when you mixed it. I wasn't there when you moved something from your nurse tank to another bottle. I don't know how it got there. I may never figure it out, but I'm pretty confident that that's glyphosate. Here's another shot. These are from 3 different counties, by the way. And these pictures don't show up great in this room. But those were just 3 cases that I had last year that I'm showing you. There were more. So let's look at the economics of that. We know, this is data from Georgia that we collected over the years, what happens to peanuts when you spray glyphosate on them at different rates. We have that data to make this point and to determine where we're going to go when we find out what's going on in a particular field. But we know that if you get 2 ounces of glyphosate on your peanuts, it's not really going to do anything. Okay? However, if you get 4 ounces on your peanuts, it's going to do something. Here's the math on that. If you look at that data, if you accidentally get 4 ounces of glyphosate on your peanuts, that's going to cause an 8.6% yield loss. And again, if you do the math on 5,000 pounds, that's $430 an acre. And if you do that, that's $88 an acre mistake. Do that on 100 acres, that's almost $9,000 you lost. Again, you didn't see it right there, but you saw it. Maybe you thought you saw it, you didn't know for sure. You really didn't know because you didn't have anything to compare it to. But I can tell you that that's what happened because we have those comparisons. The other thing we want to think about glyphosate on peanuts, with everything that's going on with glyphosate now, do we really want glyphosate getting on our peanut crop? Right? It's probably not a good idea for us when everybody's looking at glyphosate. I'm sure everybody's seen the advertisements on TV, everything that's going on with glyphosate. The European Union has already said they don't want to take peanuts that are treated with, that have any glyphosate residues on them. How they would get there is a whole other issue. But there's a good case for not, there's many cases for not getting glyphosate on our peanuts. How does it happen? It usually happens because we got glyphosate laying around in a jug that doesn't say glyphosate. All right, now this one throws, as I told you before, I was, up until 2 years ago, I was 99.9% confident that as soon as I got out of the truck, I could tell you that you had Roundup in that field. Couldn't tell you how it got there, but I could tell you it was probably Roundup. Well, in this case, this is a very similar symptomology, and this actually happened not too far from here. The grower was concerned, and we went out and looked, and I said, I thought it was glyphosate. And he said, he didn't think so. So we took it, we did my challenge. If it was glyphosate, he was going to pay. If it was not, I would pay. Well, guess who wound up paying? Me. It cost me $300. This was not glyphosate. This was diuron. Right? He had been spraying cotton just before he sprayed his peanuts and had some diuron residue left over in the bottom of the tank. All of you have these giant sprayers now. Sometimes you may or may not be sure if that's actually just water in the bottom or there's some other magical potion down there. In this case, it turned out being diuron. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have any good data to share with him. He still made pretty good peanuts. And since then, I've learned a lot more about what happens when you get diuron on peanuts, based on some work we did last year. Now, this is from a field trial based in response to that. And then this past year, I had at least 2 or 3 more people get diuron on their peanuts, right? And this is just from a study I did. I applied diuron at different rates at 90-day-old peanuts, and you can kind of see what happens. But if you look at the yield data, right? So if you accidentally make a mistake and have diuron in your sprayer, which could happen, right? Because we spray diuron on cotton. Right? Look at the yield losses that we get. At 30 days, they're a lot less than they are if we spray the peanuts at 57 to 90 days. Generally, for me, peanuts typically are more sensitive at 60 days to everything, but in this case, it didn't hold true. But let's do the math on that. All right, so if I got 4 ounces by accident of diuron on peanuts that were 57 days old, that's going to cost me 18% of my yield. That's a lot, right? So again, you do the math, that's 900 pounds. That's a $185 an acre mistake, right? That's huge. On 100 acres, that's $18,000, right? That might be the $18,000 you could have done something else with on your farm or paid another bill that you needed to pay. Okay. All right, let's talk about equipment problems. Right? Everybody has, seems to be over the last few years we've transitioned to these really nice looking sprayers. They're really sophisticated and accurate, but they're not perfect. But we can still have problems with any sprayer if you're not paying attention. So we got to pay attention. Here's an example from last year, a sprayer problem. This actually occurred with the planter. The grower was applying Valor on his planter, and one of his nozzles was plugged. Right, and he didn't know it until later. Right, so he wound up having a field of peanuts that were coming out of the ground, and the pigweeds were already that big. Well, look what he had to do. He sprayed DB, then he sprayed Gramacho and Storm, then he sprayed another shot of Gramacho and Storm, and then he sprayed Cadre and Dual. That's $51 extra that he most likely spent to clean that. Now, that's not counting. I got to tell you, I'm not a huge fan of spraying Gramacho twice on peanuts, especially in a dryland field, because you're probably hurting yield. Right? But that was a huge mistake, and all that was a plugged nozzle. Right? Okay. Now, next couple of things I want to ask you or make you think about is, what's your pesticide IQ? Right? You're handling a lot of pesticides, and they're important. You need them on your farm to control pests. But how well do you really know those products? Right? When was the last time you really read the label? I would bet that almost every problem that I see would be prevented if you would have taken 2 minutes to look at the label before you made an application, and you might have figured out, no, that's probably a bad idea. All right, and I'm introducing the term here. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble. I'm calling it label bending. All right, what's label bending? Label bending to me is when you're going to bend that label to meet what you're trying to do today. Right, so for example, if we say that we can spray Gramacho on peanuts up to 28 days after cracking, and now it's 32 days after cracking, you're going to bend that label a little bit to fit your needs instead of you bending to fit the need of the label. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of what I call label bending violations. All right, we use a lot of Paraquat right on our peanuts. You may have an opinion, good or bad. I have no problem spraying Paraquat on peanuts at all, as long as you do it according to the label. Right now, when you bend the label because you, for whatever reason, then we start to have problems. Here's an example. This is from, again, I'm showing you stuff from Georgia, so it's all happening here. This is from a study I did a couple of years ago with Georgia 16HO. I put a bunch of 9 different Gramacho treatments out at a couple of different times. In this case, I sprayed early, 16 days after planting, which would be, generally, Scott, what would you say, 5 days it takes for a peanut to emerge? So that would be, let's say, 11 days after cracking. And then I delayed those applications until 42 days after planting, which would be 37 or 38 days after planting, which is off the label. So you can see my yields are lower. That's a 5.5% yield loss. Right, again, 5.5% yield loss, that's 275 pounds an acre. You do the math, that's another $5,000, almost $6,000 an acre mistake. Again, I would love to have $6,000 in my pocket at the end of the year. All right. Here's another one that happens a lot. How many of you have sprayed Grazon P plus D on a pasture and then thought it was a great idea to plant peanuts there? Right? It's not. Grazon P plus D is, if you look at the label, it's meant to be used on permanent pastures. Permanent meaning permanent, right? That means a long time. That means more than 1 year. It means more than 2 years, right? But it's not uncommon to see this kind of symptomology, and it can occur other ways. You know, we can get the same kind of symptomology occurring from animals that have eaten hay and urine and excrete feces or urine on the field. You're going to get the same thing because picloram stays in the waste. That's a very common problem. Now, I'm going to show you a picture. This is directly off the Grazon P plus D label, and I'm 100% confident that the peanut is not mentioned there at all, right? But the only crop that's really safe is grain sorghum, if you look at it, and some of the small grains. We need at least, I wouldn't consider planting peanut behind picloram for at least 2 years, and it could be more. But what does it mean if you do it, and you see those symptomology? This has happened to me again. This is my 23rd year doing peanuts. This has been a burr under my saddle for 23 years, and so I had a grad student working on, well, what happens when we get Grazon P plus D on peanuts, right? And this is the data from trials, over 4 years of work done here in Georgia. This is the yield response. That's a 10% of the labeled rate, right? So that would be 2.4 ounces, right? So if somehow, some way, you were to get that amount of picloram residue near your peanuts, what happens? Here's the math on that. A 2.4 ounces shot of picloram is 11% yield loss. That's 565 pounds per acre. That's $116 an acre mistake. Again, you didn't see it, but it may not have been there when you went to dig your peanuts. Again, add that up on 100 acres, that's almost $12,000 that you lost because you chose to plant peanuts where you shouldn't have. All right, so I'm going to stop there. Again, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to get you to think about everything, because I'm convinced that almost every weed problem that I see is self-inflicted. Right? It's self-inflicted. You did it to yourself. And I'm 56. Some of you that are my age, y'all remember when we were young and we were learning about fire safety. We had to do, if you ever caught on fire, you had to stop, drop, and roll. Right? So I'm challenging you before you do something to stop, drop, and roll. Think about what you're doing before you do it, because you might be causing a problem that we can't fix. The label is the most important piece of information that you have. It took 11 years for that work to be done. I know it's a pain in the butt. It's like reading hieroglyphics, but that's where you're going to find the most information about, is this the rate that I should be applying, and is this when I should be applying? If it's not, what's going to happen? Right? Sprayer clean out is always important. We've got to do a better job of keeping track of our pesticide containers. Paying attention to rotation restrictions. We didn't make these up, right? We didn't just say, hey, whatever. You know, we don't make those up. They're on the label for a reason. And then don't wait till all the weeds have come up. That's what I hear all the time. Well, I didn't want to spray today because the weeds were small, but I wanted to make sure everything else came up before I got it, so I got them all. If you wait till you get them all, you're going to miss some, because those ones that were little are now big. And if you delay your application, you're going to lose yield. All right, I'm going to stop there. Hopefully I've made you think a little bit more about some of the common problems that we have as it relates to weed control.